Holy crap, how is this happening right now? Ethan Caldwell shouted into his phone, his voice bouncing off the sleek walls of the 40th floor of Caldwell Creative. The hotshot CEO of this top-tier advertising agency paced frantically in his corner office, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the bustling Chicago Loop below. A Japanese marketing team had just stepped out of two black Escalades parked outside the building. The lead copywriter, who was supposed to pitch an $860 million campaign, had just called in sick with the flu. In 20 minutes, execs from Japan's biggest retail brand would be in the boardroom to greenlight the deal. A deal that hinged on a flawless presentation. Mr. Caldwell, I've called every freelance copywriter in the city, said Vanessa, his executive assistant, phone still pressed to her ear. Nobody can handle a pitch this big on such short notice. Ethan yanked at his tailored tie, sweat dotting his brow. 15 years building Caldwell Creative into a powerhouse, and it could all crash and burn over a missing pitch. The Japanese were sticklers for precision. They'd never sign off on a half-baked presentation thrown together with Google Translate or shaky improvisation. Then, a quiet, almost hesitant voice cut through from the corner of the room. Mr. Caldwell? I can write copy and speak Japanese. All eyes snapped to Maya Jackson, 26, who'd paused her coffee run for the exec team to overhear the chaos. She held a tray of Starbucks cups, dressed in the standard khaki slacks and polo of the office support staff. Maya had been fetching coffee and restocking supplies for 3 years, always efficient, always discreet, always invisible to the big shots who breezed through. The silence was so thick you could hear the hum of the espresso machine down the hall. Vanessa let out a sharp, nervous laugh. Maya, come on, this isn't a game. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar global campaign. Ethan sized her up, like he was seeing her for the first time. You speak Japanese? He asked, his tone laced with doubt but edged with desperation. Japanese, some Korean, and I've got a degree in marketing from DePaul, Maya replied calmly, holding his gaze steady. I studied it before I started working here. At 26, Maya never imagined 3 years of running errands in this office would lead to a moment like this. But all that time, while refilling coffee pots, she'd overheard every strategy session, absorbed every campaign plan, and watched every move the execs made, especially Vanessa. Vanessa's amusement quickly turned to irritation. Ethan, you're not seriously considering this, are you? A coffee runner leading the biggest pitch of the year. But Ethan was desperate. Something about Maya's posture, the quiet confidence in her voice, made him pause. Prove it, he said abruptly. Write a tagline and say something in Japanese. Maya took a deep breath, grabbed a notepad from the table, and jotted down a catchy slogan for a luxury retail brand. Then she spoke in flawless Japanese, her voice clear and commanding. Konnichiwa, Wadashitachi no Kaienpine, wa Nihon no Kachio Tadimesu. Ethan was floored. Even without understanding the words, he could feel the natural flow and authority in her tone. What did you say? He asked, still reeling. That our campaign celebrates Japanese values, Maya translated. It's a respectful opener for a business pitch in their culture. Vanessa crossed her arms, visibly uneasy. Ethan, think about it. What are the Japanese gonna say when they find out you brought a coffee girl to an exec meeting? Right then, a memory hit Maya like a jolt. 6 months ago, she'd overheard Vanessa in the break room, griping on the phone about that black girl always lingering around important meetings. Maya had pretended not to hear, but every word stuck with her. For a moment that felt like forever, Ethan studied Maya. There was something in her eyes, sharp intelligence, quiet dignity, that stood out against the way everyone dismissed her daily. For 3 years, she'd restocked these offices, listened to these conversations, and learned more about the agency's inner workings than most of the suits. You've got 15 minutes to pull yourself together, Ethan said, ignoring Vanessa's stunned glare. Find something presentable to wear and meet me in the boardroom. As Maya rushed off, Vanessa hissed, You've lost it, Ethan. When this tanks, it's your career on the line. But Ethan wasn't listening. For the first time in years, He was about to learn that the most valuable people are often the ones nobody notices, right under their noses. What nobody knew was that Maya had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone could guess. And Vanessa, with her smug attitude and subtle bias, was about to find out that underestimating someone based on their job title is the biggest mistake you can make. 15 minutes later, when Maya walked back into the boardroom, the room went dead quiet, awkwardly so. She'd swapped her polo for a blazer borrowed from the receptionist. Simple but sharp. Her hair was pulled into a neat ponytail, and she carried a tablet like any other exec. "Holy smokes," muttered Greg, the CFO, not hiding his shock. "Is that really the same person?" Vanessa didn't bother whispering when she leaned toward her assistant. "You can polish a pebble, but it's still just a rock." The Japanese team had arrived on time. 5 sharply dressed execs sat in the sleek, glass-walled boardroom, chatting in Japanese as they took in the Chicago skyline. Ethan made the introductions, carefully avoiding Maya's actual role. "This is Maya Jackson, our lead strategist for the Asian market," he said, choosing his words with precision. The team leader, Mr. Takahashi, greeted Maya with a polite nod. When she responded in perfect Japanese, thanking them for their visit and praising their punctuality, a core value in Japanese culture, his face lit up with genuine surprise and respect. For the first 20 minutes, Maya pitched the campaign with razor-sharp precision. Not just the words, but the cultural nuances, the emotional hooks, and even a few light jokes that got real laughs from the Japanese execs. The meeting flowed smoother than anyone could have hoped. That's when Vanessa jumped in. "Maya," she said with a venomous smile, "maybe we should share your unique journey with our guests." Ethan shot her a warning look, but Vanessa pressed on. "It's just so inspiring to see someone reinvent themselves. Climbing the ladder, you know?" The sarcasm was unmistakable. Maya felt that familiar sting of humiliation, the same one she'd known since she was 19, when she had to drop out of DePaul halfway through her junior year because her mom's heart condition drained their savings, and someone had to cover the bills. "Life has a way of throwing curveballs," Maya said calmly, holding her composure as Mr. Takahashi watched the exchange with growing confusion. "But who'd have thought someone stocking coffee in these offices 3 years ago would be here today?" She paused, letting the words sink in for the Japanese team. "It really shows how our agency values talent in all its forms." The silence that followed was crushing. Maya saw Mr. Takahashi's expression shift. Not outright disdain, but an uneasy surprise that twisted her gut. In Japanese culture, professional status matters.
Isen jumpet in fast.
What Vanessa means is we champion talent, no matter where it comes from. But the damage was done. For the next 20 minutes, Maya felt the Japanese execs' glances change. They were still polite, still engaged when she spoke, but the ease was gone. She'd become a curiosity, not a peer. That's when something inside her clicked. For 3 years, she'd been in these rooms while execs hashed out campaigns, sealed deals, and made million-dollar decisions. She'd soaked up every word, every tactic, every screw-up, especially Vanessa's. Like the time Vanessa fudged sales projections to impress a client, or when she took credit for a junior copywriter's viral ad, who was later let go for budget cuts, or when she leaked confidential client data to secure a side deal. Maya had seen it all, heard it all, and most importantly, she'd kept it all. The meeting wrapped with a vague handshake agreement. The Japanese promised to review the proposal closely, corporate speak for, "We'll see if something better comes along." As the team left, Vanessa couldn't hide her smirk. "Well, that was something," she said, stacking her notes with exaggerated flair. "Next time, maybe we'll be upfront about our team's qualifications from the start." Ethan was visibly pissed, but before he could fire back, Maya stood up cool as ice. "Vanessa," she said, her voice soft but carrying a new weight. "Mr. Takahashi mentioned something interesting before he left." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "He said he was impressed with my pitch but confused by the team dynamics." Maya paused, letting the words land. He asked if I could call him later to clarify some cultural points in our presentation. Vanessa's face flickered. What points? Mostly why the person leading the pitch wasn't introduced as the key strategist, since in their culture, the one who speaks the language and nails the pitch is seen as the authority. Maya said with a faint smile. He wants to understand our org structure before making a final call. Vanessa's face paled as the implications hit her. For 3 years, Maya had been invisible. But invisibility, she was about to learn, can be a hell of a weapon, especially when you've been watching, learning, and biding your time to step into the spotlight. What Vanessa didn't know was that every slight, every humiliation, every sabotage attempt was fueling something far more dangerous than resentment. It was forging a strategist who knew every weakness, every secret, every lie floating through those corporate halls. 2 hours after the botched meeting, Maya was back in her khaki polo, hauling coffee supplies through the exec floor. But every move was deliberate now. For 3 years, she'd mapped out every key conversation, every whispered deal, every memo left on desks, especially Vanessa's. Look who's back where she belongs, Vanessa said loudly enough for the suits in the hallway to hear, as she chatted with Rachel from HR. After that train wreck today, at least we know everyone's place. Maya kept restocking, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind logged every word. Vanessa had no clue that over those 3 years, while Maya refilled her coffee, she'd seen private emails left open, overheard calls about rigging client bids, and, most damningly, found USB drives Vanessa stashed in her desk drawer, drives with proof of her stealing campaign ideas from smaller agencies. What bugs me the most, Vanessa went on, clearly showing off for Rachel, is that Ethan actually thought a coffee runner could save an $860 million deal, like 3 years fetching lattes qualifies her to sit with real execs. Just then, Maya's phone buzzed softly. A text from an unknown number, but in Japanese characters she recognized instantly. It was Mr. Takahashi. Ms. Jackson, I'd like to discuss our firm and your future opportunities privately. Can we meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Kawa Cafe on Michigan Avenue? I have an offer you might find interesting. Maya's pulse raced. This wasn't just about the pitch. It was bigger. During the meeting, she'd sensed Mr. Takahashi wasn't just judging her language skills but her business savvy, her poise, her grit under pressure. That night, in her cramped Logan Square apartment, Maya opened a file on her laptop she'd been building for 2 years. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. Every agency has its dirty laundry, and 3 years of being invisible in the halls of power gave her access to dirt that could shake the place to its core. The file, labeled Caldwell Creative Red Flags, held 60 pages of meticulously gathered evidence. Screenshots of emails Vanessa thought she deleted, call logs from the office security system when Maya worked late, and, most critically, copies of those USB drives proving Vanessa had plagiarized campaigns from minority-owned agencies over the past 18 months. Maya had watched Vanessa lie to clients, take credit for others' work, and, worst of all, use her role to block promotions for staff she deemed not the right fit for the agency's image. The next morning, at 10 o'clock sharp, Maya arrived at Kawa Cafe, wearing a crisp outfit she'd bought with her college savings. Mr. Takahashi was already there, joined by a poised woman who introduced herself as Aiko Yamada, the firm's VP of Global Partnerships. Ms. Jackson, Mr. Takahashi began in English before switching to Japanese. Yesterday, I didn't just see your pitching skills but something rarer, your composure under unfair pressure. Aiko leaned forward. Our firm is expanding in North America. We need someone who gets Japanese culture and American business dynamics. Someone who's seen how agencies really operate from the inside. And someone, Mr. Takahashi added with a knowing smile, who doesn't bend to small-minded people in big roles. For 2 hours, Maya spoke fluently about market trends, cultural nuances in advertising, and how U.S. firms often underestimate Asian clients' sophistication. She subtly referenced issues she'd noticed at rival agencies, without naming names. When Aiko slid a business card across the table, Maya read, Jackson Strategies, Global Marketing Consulting. Below it was a salary 4 times what she made at Caldwell Creative. "Think about our offer," Mr. Takahashi said, standing. "But we have one condition. We'd like you to start by helping us investigate some irregularities in Caldwell Creative's contracts. There's evidence of practices that violate international trade regulations." Maya held the card steady. For 3 years, she'd been treated like a piece of furniture. Now, 2 of Asia's sharpest business minds were offering her not just a job but a partnership. "There's an emergency meeting at Caldwell Creative tomorrow," Aiko said quietly. "We've heard the Japanese team filed a formal complaint about contract issues. You might want to be there." That night, Maya called her mom. "Mom, you always said patience is a smart woman's sharpest tool, right?" "Sure did, honey. Why?" "I think I finally get what you meant." As she hung up, Maya gazed out her apartment window at the Chicago skyline. Tomorrow, Vanessa and all of Caldwell Creative would discover that 3 years of invisibility had created something far more dangerous than a bitter employee. It had shaped a strategist who knew every flaw, every lie, every secret in that agency. And unlike the execs who judged people by their titles, Maya had learned real power comes from observing, planning, and striking when your opponents least expect it. The next morning, the boardroom at Caldwell Creative buzzed with tension. Ethan had called an urgent meeting with the full board after the Japanese team sent an official report flagging serious contract violations that could trigger a federal probe. Vanessa strode in, radiating confidence, her navy suit and stilettos clicking with authority. She'd spent the night crafting her defense, convinced she could pin the whole mess on the clueless coffee girl Ethan had dragged into the pitch. "Well," Vanessa began, addressing the 8 board members, "I assume we're here to dissect yesterday's disaster. As I warned, putting an unqualified staffer in a high-stakes pitch was a reckless move that's now costing us $860 million. That's when the door opened silently. Maya walked in, wearing a tailored black suit. Not borrowed, but bought the night before with an advance from the Japanese firm. She carried a leather briefcase and a laptop, moving with the confidence of someone who'd finally claimed her place. "Sorry I'm late," Maya said evenly, taking a seat beside Ethan. "I was finalizing some key info for the meeting." Vanessa's face twisted with barely veiled annoyance. "With all due respect, Ethan, why is she here? This is an executive meeting." "She's here," Ethan said icily, "because the Japanese team specifically requested her to address the allegations they raised." Maya opened her laptop with measured precision. "Mr. Takahashi reached out to me yesterday afternoon with concerns about Caldwell Creative's contract practices. Apparently, they uncovered evidence of bid rigging and sabotage against competing agencies." "That's absurd," Vanessa snapped, her voice jumping an octave. What could a coffee runner possibly know about executive operations? The smile that crossed Maya's face was subtle but devastating. The kind of evidence you pick up when you're invisible for 3 years, and people talk around you like you're not even there. Vanessa's expression shifted, a flicker of real fear in her eyes. Maya connected her laptop to the projector. The first image was an internal email from Vanessa to a client, dated 5 months ago. This email, sent to Kyoto Retail, leaks confidential data about our competitor, Osaka Ads, at the time. The room went deathly quiet. Vanessa tried to interrupt, but Maya pressed on relentlessly. This second file shows how Vanessa inflated costs on projects led by Asian and Black staff, forcing cancellations she then blamed on their incompetence. The screen flashed with doctored spreadsheets, internal emails, and USB drive backups. For 3 years, Maya had documented every violation with surgical care. "This is a setup," Vanessa yelled, leaping to her feet. "She's faking evidence to get back at me for exposing her real job." Maya stayed seated, unruffled. "Mr. Caldwell, the video I'm about to play was recorded by the agency's security system 7 months ago." Vanessa's voice blared through the room's speakers. "We can't let people like that think they belong in boardroom meetings. It's about upholding the agency's standards." Vanessa's face drained of color. She remembered that conversation. a private chat with Greg about keeping the agency professional. And this, Maya continued, pulling up another clip, is from a month ago, when Vanessa told the receptionist to lose resumes from candidates with ethnic-sounding names. One of the board members, Mr. Jackson, a 62-year-old black man who'd been with the agency for 18 years, leaned forward, his face grim. "Vanessa, is this true?" It's out of context," Vanessa stammered, sweat beading on her forehead. "You don't get the pressure I'm under to maintain our image." "Our image," Maya said softly, "includes ethics, integrity, and compliance with federal anti-discrimination laws, all of which have been systematically ignored for the past 18 months. Ethan turned to Vanessa, his face like stone. "You've got 30 seconds to explain why you shouldn't be fired on the spot," and reported to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Vanessa scanned the table desperately, searching for an ally, a friendly face. All she found were looks of disapproval and disgust. "You're making a huge mistake," she whispered, her voice cracking. "She's just a bitter coffee girl who," Ethan cut her off with authority, "is our new director of global strategy. And you're done." The silence was deafening. Vanessa stood frozen, swaying slightly, as her 14-year career imploded in minutes. "Your access will be revoked immediately," Ethan continued. "Security will escort you to grab your personal items. And Vanessa," he paused, "given the severity of this evidence, we're forwarding everything to the federal prosecutor." As security led Vanessa out, she threw Maya a final venomous glare. "You might have won today, but it doesn't change who you are." Maya met her eyes, unflinching. "You're right. I'm exactly who I've always been. Someone who watches, learns, and acts when the time's right. The difference is now I'm where I belong." 3 hours later, with the meeting over and Maya officially named to her new role, Ethan pulled her aside. "How'd you pull this off? 3 years of evidence, recordings, files?" Maya smiled for the first time in days. "When people treat you like you're invisible, they forget you've got eyes and ears." Vanessa underestimated what being overlooked can teach you and overestimated her own smugness. Standing in her new office with a view of the Chicago River, Maya realized the best revenge wasn't destroying Vanessa. It was building something bigger than she could ever dream of. The future ahead was hers to write, and nobody could erase her mark this time. 6 months later, Maya Jackson sat in her new office on the 35th floor of Caldwell Creative, reviewing contracts she'd secured with Asian brands. Her desk was cluttered with pitch decks in Japanese, Korean, and English, deals that had brought in $400 million in new business for the agency. "Maya, the Hong Kong team's here," said Rachel, now her personal assistant. "They're pumped to meet the woman who tripled our Asia portfolio in 6 months." Through the window, Maya looked out at the city she'd once navigated as an invisible errand runner. Now, as director of global strategy, she was one of Chicago's most respected execs. Her $275,000 salary had covered her mom's medical bills, and she'd finished her MBA through an executive program at Northwestern. "What about the Adweek interview next week?" Rachel asked, checking Maya's pack schedule. "Locked in," Maya replied, adjusting her navy blazer worn by choice, not obligation. "They want to talk about my spot on their list of top young marketing leaders." Across town, Vanessa sat in a cramped apartment in Evanston, evicted from her downtown loft after missing rent. Therapy bills piled up on her kitchen counter, next to rejection emails from every agency she'd applied to. The federal probe into her discriminatory practices had slapped her with a $45,000 fine and a 5-year ban from executive roles at firms with government contracts. Her name was plastered across trade publications as a case study in toxic leadership, making her a pariah in the industry. That morning, she'd seen Maya's face on the cover of Adage, smiling confidently beside Japanese execs, with the headline, "The Pitch That Rewrote Global Marketing." The irony stung like a slap. Back at Caldwell Creative, Ethan called a board meeting to announce the stellar quarterly results. "Maya Jackson didn't just save our Japan deal," he told the room. She cracked open markets we never thought we'd touch. Mr. Jackson, the board member who'd seen Vanessa's downfall, stood to give a brief speech. In my 35 years in advertising, I've rarely seen a turnaround like Maya's. She's shown that real talent doesn't care about race, class, or titles. It shines through any barrier. The room erupted in applause as Maya sat humbly, thinking of the woman who used to haul coffee to that same boardroom just 7 months ago. That night, in her new Lakeview condo, Maya got a call from her mom. "Sweetie, I saw you on TV today. You spoke so beautifully about second chances and grit." "I learned from the best," Maya said, grinning. "You always told me people can try to dim your light, but they can't dim what you know or what you can do." In that TV interview, Maya was asked about Vanessa and whether she held a grudge for how she'd been treated. Her answer was sharp and graceful. "Vanessa gave me the greatest gift. She showed me exactly who I didn't want to be. Her arrogance and bias taught me that real power lifts others up, not tears them down." 3 weeks later, Maya was at DePaul, her alma mater, launching a scholarship program for low-income students forced to pause their studies due to financial hardship. "Nobody should have to choose between family and their dreams," she told a crowd of 600 teary-eyed students. The Fresh Start program, partly funded by her own salary, had already approved 18 full scholarships for the next semester. Vanessa, watching the event online in her tiny apartment, shut her laptop with tears in her eyes. For the first time in months, they weren't tears of self-pity but something closer to real regret. Meanwhile, Maya returned to the office where, 3 years earlier, she'd lugged coffee through the halls. Now, young strategists greeted her with respect, interns asked for career tips, and, most importantly, she mentored 6 support staff with untapped potential. "You know what's wild about this whole thing?" Ethan asked Maya in a private chat. "You could have used all that dirt on Vanessa to ruin her personally, but you only exposed her professional screw-ups." Maya smiled softly. "The best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's building something so incredible that everything they tried to do to you just fades into nothing." Maya Jackson's story proved that raw talent, unshakable dignity, and quiet preparation can overcome any prejudice or injustice. She turned 3 years of being unseen into her greatest asset, showing that sometimes the most powerful people are the ones you never notice, watching, learning, and waiting for their moment to shine. Vanessa tried to crush her with bias and ego, but she ended up architecting her own downfall. Maya taught the ad world that true leadership isn't about titles or privilege. It's about seeing potential where others see limits.